Welcome back to Team Talk, everybody. As you can tell, there's no Zach Jalab currently in the hot seat. I've taken over hosting responsibilities for this one episode only, and what a special episode we have as well. You've got to see this lineup. Look who's back in the building. MIA for years. We found him. We've dragged him back in front of a camera. Dave Jackson, how are you?
I'm very well. The OAP is back in the building, baby.
Yes,
let's
absolutely.
go.
The OAP. We've got the Dads team over here, joined by Patrick Van Straten as well. Papa Pat, how are you?
We are the older ones and we are the dads, but I feel like we look younger than these.
Oh, wow. As you can see,
early dig at me.
Early digs going in at Dougie Critchley and Mikey McCubbin.
You've still got a lot of youth about you.
I do, yeah.
Newly 30?
Newly
got a lot
30.
of miles there.
Yeah, got a lot of miles on my belt, but you know what? I think I'm looking fresher than I ever have. To be honest, these are the dads. These are the daddies.
I love it. I love it. Let's move on from daddy chat though and move on to some football rankings. As we do every single week, the boys have got their whiteboards in front of them. I'm going to read out 3 players. I want you to rank them best, middle, worst of the 3. Okay, 1, 2, 3. We're going for here. We're not going for start, bench, sell. We're going for 1, 2, 3 in a ranking system. And I'm looking for their prime. These players in their prime, on their best day. Okay, lads, I don't want to hear necessarily about longevity. I want to hear about their prime.
Okay.
Aguero, Rooney, Zlatan.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Do I have to define when I think their era, like when their prime was?
I would like some sort of definition around prime.
Cheers.
You know, you can pick it. It doesn't have to match up with other people around you, but I would like some relative definition of when their prime was from your perspective. Okay, 3, 2, 1, reveal. So we've got Rooney, Aguero, Zlatan, Rooney, Aguero, Zlatan, Rooney, Aguero, Zlatan. Oh, Mikey McCubbin, the only differential.
I know, it's ridiculous.
Why have you picked Aguero over Rooney?
I don't know. I feel like I could regret this. I just think when we're going for prime, right, I feel like Rooney really in his prime, unfortunately, was having to play second fiddle to CR7, and he was still amazing then, and like really he's my favourite Man United player ever. Like I love the guy, like maybe my favourite Premier League player ever. But I just think when Aguero was actually at his prime, he was easily, top 3 centre forwards in Europe, was just mesmerising. Like he was doing stuff that almost no other striker in Europe was able to do at that time. Whereas Rooney, I feel like his prime was more as a facilitator, I feel. But it depends where we think his prime is. Like Rooney, 18, 19, 20. Yeah. It was a really tough one.
When's your definition of Rooney's prime?
I think Rooney...
08, 09?
I think Rooney in his prime was, 2006 to 2010 probably. And 2010, he did score a ton of goals, but he was more just a pure centre forward and was never really as good a pure number 9 as Aguero. I think a better all-round player, but I just think his prime was, unfortunately, he wasn't the main man at United in his prime, unfortunately. Even though I think he was potentially a more important player than Ronaldo, he wasn't. He could have been. If he was being supplied more and he wasn't having to do more legwork, then we would have seen more output from him in those years. Whereas Aguero, when he was fit, was just, I think, does he still have the best goals to game ratio of any Premier League striker? Like, it's really hard to argue with that.
Anybody biting back at that?
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Go.
That was good. I think that if Aguero had been in a team with Ronaldo, he would also have had to play a facilitating role. Like, I just think that's the nature of the beast, like when you're alongside one of the modern greats. And the fact that Rooney could do it and was still capable of being world class was pretty remarkable, to be honest. We've seen a player like Benzema, for instance. There was a long period at Real Madrid where people would say of Benzema, oh, actually, we can upgrade Benzema. We can replace him. People talked about that for years because he was playing that facilitating role. Whereas with Rooney, I think Rooney was still world class while taking a back seat. And I actually think that part of what makes Rooney so great is that it is so hard to define his prime, because he was always a phenomenal distributor, incredibly hardworking, could win games single-handedly, was comfortable dropping into the midfield. Everything that we praise Harry Kane for doing now, Rooney was better at except for the goal scoring. Like Rooney was way better at all the playmaking stuff, and in that sense, I think was a much more kind of modern and like revolutionary forward. Like I guess that with Aguero was obviously creative and Aguero could dribble, but to me, Rooney was one of those all-round forwards, not at the standard of, but in the kind of bracket of somebody like Henry, who was comfortable doing loads and loads of different things. And that, I think, just shows like such an incredible game intelligence as well as skill.
Okay. All right. So I don't think Rooney's even been replaced 5 years on, whereas Man City replaced Aguero in one transfer window very, very easily, right? And I know we're talking about their prime. I know we're talking about their prime. And if we talk about their prime, I'm talking whether it was 18-year-old Wayne Rooney. I have never seen an Englishman as scary and as scared opposition international teams the way that Wayne Rooney petrified world-class teams in 2004. And you know, if he hadn't got injured in 2004, I believe we would have won the Euros again. This is my hat on there.
Here we go.
I feel that like Aguero was a world-class striker.
Yeah.
But just a world-class striker. I think Wayne Rooney had so many greater assets to his all-around game. And if I could only pick one, it'd be Wayne Rooney.
Yeah, when City had periods where Gabriel Jesus was starting, they were still just as good.
Yeah.
They really were just as good, even though Aguero is a better player than Jesus. But having Rooney in your team was like having... He did all the stuff that like Bruno Fernandes does now, as well as doing the job of like a proper centre forward. It was crazy.
I feel like Aguero's best years really though were pre-Pep. I feel like Aguero in his prime was like 2012 to 2016.
Mancini, Pellegrini.
Yeah, like and even in those City teams, which actually were a bit dodgy at times, he was really pulling them through games, and they were really markedly worse without him. I know they were quite reliant on company around that time as well. But I think the problem with Rooney is that I think I just wish we'd seen him. I wish we'd seen more years of him in his prime after Ronaldo left, when he was the main man at United. The reality was we got like 2 exceptional seasons out of him, whereas I think Aguero's prime was a bit longer in that sense.
Ooh,
like at least in terms of just consistently being like the best goal scorer in the league.
Yeah. I actually kind of agree with all the points that Jacko and Pat have made, so I'm not going to go over that again. The reason I had Zlatan at bottom, we might as well mention him, is just because, yes, in ability-wise, he might be most similar to Rooney in terms of his all-round game, but and definitely had the most longevity of all these players, but we never really saw it when it mattered in the later stages of the Champions League. And his peak was probably at PSG at a time when the French league wasn't as strong even as it is now. His best years were kind of a little bit lost in a period either at PSG or when Serie A was recovering from Calciopoli. So I'd have him bottom. I also saw far less of him. But yeah, I just think Rooney was the better all-round player than Aguero. Aguero, as you guys have said, probably the better, more lethal striker.
You can make one more point, but I want you to be quick.
Wayne Rooney defined an era, whereas I think Aguero defined a moment. Do you know what I'm saying?
Oh,
very poetic.
How long have you been rehearsing that? Okay.
A late play for Martin Tyler's position.
Do you know what? For the poetic nature and his comeback, I'm awarding Dave Jackson a point there. But I'm also going to award Mikey a point. I think you argued Aguero very well there, Mikey, because it was a tough one against 3 people that disagreed. The next category is their Premier League careers only. Okay. I don't necessarily want to hear about them playing in La Liga or playing in Serie A, but I want to hear about the Premier League and what they achieved when they were at a Premier League club. So you can take into account Champions League success if they're playing in the Premier League. Premier League careers only. Hazard, Salah, Cristiano.
Wow.
3, 2, 1, reveal.
Ooh.
Oh, is there any agreement here? Oh yeah, agreement.
I'm surprised.
You guys
We
got the
all
same three
agree.
again.
Yeah.
Again.
How has this happened?
Mikey,
the outlier.
And I'm also not backing United.
Salah won.
I'm really surprised that Salah's not like number 1 for everyone, or at least for anyone else. I just think I think out of all of these players, Salah is the only one who definitely gets into the all-time Premier League 11. Like, I think he's on the right, absolutely nailed on. like
You don't
nailed
think
on.
Ronaldo's nailed on?
I don't think so. Nah.
Sick.
Are you playing Henri on the
Love
left?
to hear it.
I'd play Henri. I think Henri goes
Play him everywhere.
either the left or
Who
up front
cares?
in a 4-4-2. I think Salah has to go on the right.
Greatest player of
I'd
all
have
time.
Henri in the middle, and then Ronaldo on the left, Salah on the right.
Yeah,
But
I think Ronaldo, there's more competition there. I think you could like argue that David Silva maybe had a better Premier League career than Ronaldo. The thing is with Ronaldo is that he was obviously brilliant. And was part of those 3 title-winning sides. I just think Salah's goal-scoring record is so outrageous and so consistent over like a 5-year period in a Liverpool team that was like growing as well. Like,
last player to win the Ballon d'Or. Though, last player to win the Ballon d'Or in the Premier League.
Is Ronaldo actually the last player to win the Ballon d'Or in the Premier League?
Yeah.
That is
I would say,
outrageous.
though,
That's
in
ridiculous.
Defense of Mikey's point, I think the Ballon d'Or, because I was going to make the point that he won the Ballon d'Or, and
Messi
it was by
Ronaldo
far,
era,
but
wasn't it?
exactly, it was just before the Messi Ronaldo era, where Salah has always kind of been competing with those guys still. So I don't necessarily think that's the best reason. I actually just thought Ronaldo had the best individual season out of any of these.
Yeah,
We're talking
the
about
year
career,
before
though.
the year he left, and was also, he had that. It's a bit of a disaster. When
Not
he came
after
back,
a season, though. After a Premier League
Premier-
career.
a whole
Premier League career, sure, but I just don't think anyone's excited me, anyone's entertained me, anyone's thrilled me in the same way that Ronaldo did in that period before that move to Real Madrid. I think Salah I put above Hazard just because of consistency. I think Hazard's probably a better all-round footballer by far, but even Salah puts up very good numbers in relatively poor Liverpool teams or Liverpool teams that have injury issues, etc. But I just think Ronaldo's got to be top.
I think the thing is, what I would say back to that is that I think in some ways Ronaldo, for me, like is second, and it's not really his fault. United bought him when he was still very raw, and he was still great. But like Salah was signed by Liverpool as he was approaching his peak, and has been at his peak ever since. Like people talked about Salah, not having his best season last year. Like by most standards, by like Hazard's standards, even by Ronaldo's standards at United, even when Ronaldo was at his best at United, 08-09, I think I'm not even sure he got as many goal involvements as Salah did last year for a Liverpool side that didn't even qualify for the Champions League. Like Salah has been at his peak throughout his Premier League career, whereas Ronaldo took 3 years to get to his like best level. Like Salah has been consistent.
So that's a function of age, though, right? And
of course, and it's not his fault.
And he exceeds him trophies wise, and the fact that I would also say that like.
But he wasn't playing in an era where Man City were, he was playing in an era when Man United were. Well, Chelsea were challenging.
But also when they won the Champions League, like he was the deciding factor. Whereas actually, when Liverpool won the Champions League, it wasn't really Salah. Like there was the penalty, but everybody in that front line was almost equally good that season. Goals, they were all phenomenal. And I mean, like I agree with you. The reason I put Salah ahead of Hazard is because like Salah's down season is like 29 goal involvements. Hazard had a down season in the middle of his Chelsea career where he literally did nothing for a year. He like down tools. And obviously he won 2 titles, but he didn't win a Champions League. I think that's a factor as well. But Ronaldo, I think, was the most exciting player in the world. He was also the best goal scorer in the world. He was absolutely impossible to contain. He was incredibly exciting to watch. He was the defining player in the Premier League at that time. Like he was the face of football during that period. Salah has always been phenomenal, reliable, incredibly consistent. But we don't just watch football to see who gets the most goal involvements. We also watch football to be entertained. Like it is an entertainment.
I still think Salah is an entertaining player, though.
He is. Of course he is. He's one of the best players in the world. But is he as entertaining as Ronaldo? Absolutely running riot in the Premier League and the Champions League. Before he was even age-wise at his peak. I mean, there's almost never been. There have been very few players in football history more watchable than that.
I do get that. I think in terms of pure box office, I think Ronaldo would take it, but I just think it's really hard to argue with Salah's output. I think it's really, really hard to argue.
Not a chat going on here about Eden Hazard. Given I would also describe him as, I would maybe say, slightly more box office to watch than Mo Salah.
If I had to watch one of these, like kind of week in, week out, like Hazard is probably more consistently amazing.
Hazard was brilliant, but in a different way to the other two. Ronaldo probably hadn't reached, as we said earlier, was younger when he arrived than Hazard. But Hazard did have dips in his form when the team was doing worse. And I think Ronaldo and Salah have carried teams to more extent than Hazard. I feel like Hazard has sometimes dropped his level to the players around him, whereas the other two just haven't.
And Hazard's best season was like 31 goals and assists or something like that. Like Cristiano Ronaldo got 31 goals. Like Salah got 32. I mean, if you're looking at the raw numbers, okay, Hazard might be maybe the best dribbler of all three of these. Certainly the most efficient dribbler of all of these, but the other two just have something else.
Also, I think like Ronaldo came in, won the titles, won the Champions League, and then sold for a world record fee. Whereas both these, I know you could argue the same thing with Hazard, but then look where his kind of career's gone. Again, we'll talk about the Premier League.
Premier only, Dave.
But I think the reason why Ronaldo is ahead of Salah is because Salah's done his business, won his one league title, won Champions League, right? Whereas at Liverpool. But then if you used to sell him now, what would you be kind of like? You wouldn't be commanding a world record fee at any point in his career, I would argue.
He's older though,
Salah.
and the Neymar deal's
Salah.
already been done though.
He is older, but it's.
I think if Neymar, if the Neymar transfer to PSG hadn't happened, I think Salah at some point would have been like most valuable player in the world. I would feel.
Okay, let's award some points here. Pat, I think you're going to take a point for this one.
Thank you.
Argument was very, very strong around Cristiano Ronaldo. Good knowledge. Pat takes the point in there, George. Category number 3. We've got one more category after this. Then we're going to do our main part, the overpriced or underpriced.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
So category number 3 is the best 5 to 10 million pound transfer.
Oh.
All of these players cost in that range,
Okay.
according to Transfer Mark, guys. So don't abuse me. Abuse them. Vincent Kompany to Manchester City. Cesar Azpilicueta to Chelsea. Andy Robertson to Liverpool.
This is a tough one again.
All of them cost somewhere between 5 and 10 million pounds. I think Robertson might be the most expensive at about 9, something like
This
that.
is really easy.
3, 2, 1. Reveal.
Oh, Robertson number 1. Okay, interesting.
Very easy, I was hearing.
Interesting.
Chat, very easy here. Pat,
Dave number 2. That's
Yeah.
a disgrace for you for written Dave. Then.
Pat, you've gone
Absolute
for
disgrace.
Robertson as number 1, so you're the only person of that company as 1. Why?
Because they picked up a guy who didn't have particularly impressive stats from relegated Hull, and he went on to be the best left back in the world. That's pretty remarkable. Kompany was great. Kompany was amazing, but I do think that Man City could still have achieved a lot with an inferior centre back. Whereas I think that actually the way Liverpool played ended up being so reliant on their fullbacks. When Liverpool were at their best, they were a fullback orientated side. Everything went through them, and he was absolutely unbelievable. I mean, Azpilicueta just hasn't achieved the same level of success, I think. But I don't know. I just think that the way that the fact that Kompany was one of the gambles that they took in a period where they were taking a lot of gambles. They got Jerome Boateng and ended up letting him go. They went and got guys like Ilana and weird like that. And some of those worked out and some of them didn't. With Robertson, they really did kind of stake a lot on our recruitment says that this guy is going to be great. And I think he was one of the successes which really cemented their way of doing things and led to that team winning a first title in 30 years and a Champions League.
Okay.
I think you can make the same arguments for Kompany.
Yeah.
Though. I think he was brought in
Didn't win a Champions League.
predominantly to play as a defensive midfielder from Hamburg, and did that for his early stages, and then became one of the best centre-backs in Premier League history in a position where I think there's more competition than left-back as well.
I think the thing with Kompany as well is he evolved and adapted to various different Man City teams and continued to win and continued to embody that strength that they actually came to know. Because obviously he won the first league title with.
I also
Mancini.
think Robertson was kind of lucky in a weird way to arrive at a period where the clocked side was just getting better and better and better and work under one elite manager, as Dave says, whereas Kompany went through some managers that you probably wouldn't put in the top bracket, and was consistently, and that leadership as well, came up in really big moments as well for that side, scoring crucial goals, that one against Man United, that one against Leicester. I just think he was an absolute Premier League legend.
But he was injured a lot, and I also don't think that if I were constructing a Premier League, all-time Premier League side, I do think Ashley Cole would be my left back, but Robertson would be next.
Yeah.
Whereas there are 2 centre-back slots, and I don't think Kompany gets
But that's
either
my
of them.
point about. I think there's more competition at centre-back than
But
there is
doesn't
at
that
left-back.
suggest something about the role, that the role is really hard to excel in, and the fact that Robertson's one of the best to
or
do
just
it
there's
is kind of
just
impressive.
very few top. Well,
You can also I know what you're saying, that Liverpool were on the up, Robertson comes in, they've got the manager, they've got the way of doing things, and he gets to grow in that. But the fact remains that there are plenty of guys who come into teams and they just do a job. They're like functional fullbacks or they're functional central midfielders. So for instance, that's what I'd say about Jorginho, Wijnaldum. But in the end, Liverpool ended up running their whole game. Their whole game was about creativity from their fullbacks, and they had fullbacks who could just dominate a flank. More specifically, they had one fullback who could dominate a flank, and it was Robertson. He took up the entire wing by himself, and I think they wouldn't have been able to play the way they did without him. And I think maybe our view of him is coloured a little bit by the fact that last season was pretty crap and he's still kind of playing, whereas Kompany, as a guy who's left the league, gone into management, gets to kind of have that glow of posterity in the same way that, like, you know, Biggie Smalls died young, so we never had to see him sell out and get crap.
But also, like, if we can bring the longevity argument into this, right? Kompany was Man City captain for nearly 10 years. Like, won how many titles?
Bro,
did
Hugo
he win?
Lloris is Spurs captain. Like,
but Hugo Lloris didn't, wasn't like a key part of multiple title-winning sides.
Won a World Cup.
Yeah, but not really. Not really. Come on, don't throw me off like that. But I think, and Dougie touched upon it, and Jackson touched upon it. Like, that leadership, the leadership thing is huge. Like, he managed that dressing room for that amount of time, and managed to see through that, like, slightly down period between between Pellegrini during the Pellegrini years, between kind of Mancini and Pep really well, and was so crucial to that side during that period. Like Duke said, managed to adapt. Was, I think, the best centre-back in the Premier League during that time. Yeah. I can't really think of who was really better. Sorry?
Koscielny.
Come on. But he would, and like you say, Pat, he would.
You don't actually believe Koscielny was better than Kompany in that period?
I
Maybe
believe
for like 3 months.
There was a long period.
Maybe for like 3
there was a long
months.
period where Kompany was like quite injured, and Koscielny was not.
But whenever Kompany wasn't injured, whenever Kompany was fit, he was still like brilliant.
But there were like 3 times in that period where people were like, Kompany's finished, because he would come back and he'd look rusty.
Maybe for like one game. I can't really remember.
Seriously.
I can't really remember it. Like, even if he was a bit rusty, I feel like his general leadership of that back line did make a big difference.
Plus, people have also said the same thing about Robertson last season.
But
why do you have Dave at 2? That's weird.
We need to get on you about that. Actually,
you can get on wherever you want, lads. Right? So he's won every single thing that a player can win: Europa League, Champions League.
Hasn't Robertson?
I think he's the only player actually that has done that.
There you go. Let's get your trophies on the table, boys. Yeah, and let's see who's won what. What's his name? Robertson, unbelievable left back, but what's he won? Champions League title.
Yeah.
FA Cup,
pretty good.
FA Cup is amazing, but you look at Aspilicueta.
Club World Cup.
So world champion, baby.
So is your burn here like on Robertson that Robertson is Scottish and Aspilicueta
No.
Spanish?
I think he's in terms of value, he's unbelievable. Because he came in and he allowed Klopp to play a way that he wanted to play, that would then allow the rest of the players to be able to be elevated, right? But Aspilicueta came in cheap as chips, won all of these trophies, and then did they even get a fee for him at the end? Is he only went to Atletico, or did he go on a free?
He went for a free.
Well, there you go. Money off the wages off the thing.
At the same time, by the time they won the Champions League, he was not
a key member,
like a particularly key member of the side.
He was
certainly past his
with
best.
a blank starting 11 right now. You do not have Aspilicueta. I mean, it's not really relevant to this, but he's the worst player.
I think he's easily the worst player.
At the same time, if you wanted a squad, Aspilicueta would 100% be in it. He's amazing.
He'd be very good for my bench.
Definitely the most versatile.
Definitely.
The names on there.
Sure.
I think longevity-wise,
was his peak ever as good as the other two?
That's the thing. I just don't think he ever got to their level as a player. Like he was great. Like in a great servant to Chelsea. What did he win? 2 league titles. Like obviously captain as well. But
he won everything.
Champions League, Europa League,
I forgot about that.
World Cup.
All right, let's write off
Cup.
some of those.
Yeah, I think.
FA Cup, League Cup.
How many more cups can Dave name before he gets to Audi? Okay, look, let's wrap it up. I think Pat, again, very persuasive with the Robertson argument. Dougie also getting a point, though. I think you made some good counter arguments. Dave, I'm tempted to minus a point off you there.
I think I probably would have changed my mind to be fair.
Yeah. Well, you can change your mind.
Yeah, I would have put Robertson at number 2.
I forgot that was the aim of the game.
It's changed in weeks.
Yeah, my bad.
I actually genuinely haven't been quite convinced yet.
All right, I'm going for another category here then, before we get to overpriced or underpriced. This is centre-backs. So 1, 2 and 3. Martinez, Saliba, Romero.
I know he's my third.
I know my number one is. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun.
Martinez, Saliba, Romero.
Come on, mate.
Okay, let's reveal, please.
Oh,
That is
here we go.
mental. What is wrong with
Nah,
you?
come on.
I don't think it's that crazy. It's just very wrong.
I thought I'd back my United boy for once in this episode.
He's not that
once
good
in this
though,
series.
is
I think he had a better season last season.
Then who?
Then Saliba, Martinez, yeah.
Even though-
we
loving the
would
delivery
have been champions of England if it was not for him getting
Even though
injured.
United
he would have been
didn't have a
champions
very
of
good
England if it wasn't
defence.
for Tommy Asu getting injured.
No,
That's
if
that,
Saliba would have stayed fit, we would have been champions of England without
If
shadow, and
buts and
potentially
maybes.
Europa League winners as well.
And if Martinez hadn't got injured, maybe we would have been the Europa League winners as well. We were
Europa
so
League
bad with
winner.
them.
Oh, okay,
That's
okay.
good, man.
Yeah, so
You had a
can't
better
use
team.
that as a point and
You
then
had a better
fail, and then
team. I
Chris
think that's
White.
better.
No, but
Yeah,
we
you can because
definitely-
one of
I
those is a
would-
bigger trophy than the other.
Like the drop off that Arsenal had once Saliba got injured was monumental. It was
I think the
ridiculous.
same thing happens when
Yeah.
Martinez is injured as well. To be honest.
Yeah, but I
think-
just think Man United are just not very good. Like, I mean,
I
like,
agree. You're a much better side.
like as in that's the thing. You know, it's easier to improve a team that still has so many holes in it, I suppose. Whereas United now have been building this team for quite a long time, and yet they are so noticeably different. I mean, Saliba is a huge physical presence. He's an excellent passer. He's required to play like different roles by the system, not required to play different roles because of, I'd say, the things he's good at and the things he isn't, which is kind of what happens with Martinez. I don't know. I just think that Saliba was clearly one or two as the best centre backs in the league last season, and I think Martinez was probably next after that. But also Martinez got dog walked at some points last season. Like, I mean, the only game where I really saw
right at the
Saliba get
start.
a seriously bad time was probably against Brentford, where he got ragdolled a little bit, but he's 21 years old, whereas Martinez is 24. You expect him to be at a higher stage of his development, and I literally saw him got put in a blender by like Salah.
I thought there was a little period before Saliba got injured where his level did dip slightly, and I actually thought Gabriel was better post-World Cup pre-injury than Saliba. But this is
Still better than Martinez, though.
I don't know. I also give a little bit of respect, and it's a bit of a Fugazi point because it doesn't really matter. But Martinez came in and there was so much criticism of him over his height, something that he just can't avoid by some of the most powerful names in British football criticising him just for his height. And I just thought the way he responded and turned it around, and I didn't really see him have a bad game all year. Saliba, very few I'd agree as well. But I just thought Martinez deserves a lot of respect for the way he turned people's opinions around so quickly. And I actually think he's maybe a slightly better passer than Saliba.
He's meant to be a better passer, though. And actually, I thought in the end, I was not as impressed with his passing as I expected to be. Like, it's very good, but it's not like best in the league, which is what we were led to expect.
He was also playing in an inferior system. Like you say, Pat, Martinez playing in a much worse team than Saliba was, definitely playing in a much worse defence, like a defence which was completely shot to bits the previous campaign. A defence, he had to partner a completely out of confidence Harry Maguire at points. He had a keeper behind him who was a really poor distributor. He had fullbacks who, on their day can be great. Luke Shaw actually, generally pretty consistent, but was playing with someone at right back who, Wan-Bissaka and Dalot, not particularly consistent. Playing behind a midfield which, without Casemiro, really lacked any kind of authority, and without Eriksen lacked any kind of ball progression. He was playing in a side which was quite threadbare at points last season, and didn't have. He was playing in a system which was still getting to grips with itself, whereas Saliba was coming into an Arteta side which was like almost there, and then just needed someone like him to elevate it a little bit. Whereas Martinez almost instantly elevated a defence which was really, really poor. Ended the season with the most clean sheets of any side, like somehow. I think Martinez completely elevated that team. And let's remember, like, he also came into an Ajax team before that was dealing with De Ligt and Frenkie de Jong leaving, and instantly, was able to stabilise that area of the field whereas I think, a lot of other players would have struggled to kind of replace those kind of players and the loss that they brought to that Ajax.
I think that's an argument that he's really good though, as opposed to an argument that he's like better than Saliba. Like I agree with everything you said. I just don't think that it makes that much difference. I think the improvement in Man United to where they ended up last season, 2 seasons ago Man United finished second with more points than they did last season, whereas Arsenal were kind of expected to really struggle and to maybe be kind of around 5th spot, and in the end for a long stretch of the campaign looked like they were going to run away with the league, and the point at which they lost the ability to do that was the point at which Saliba went down injured. He's 21 years old. I mean, like, to be able to lead the defence in that way, I agree about Gabriel and Zinchenko and Ben White. I agree about all this stuff, but I guess if I was building a team now and I needed a centre back, I would pick Saliba over Martinez.
Do you not think there was more than one factor to Arsenal not winning the league? I think it's a little
of
bit,
course,
but I don't know
of
whether.
Course, but
I think most people there was a point where everyone was like, look, it looks like it's 50-50, which I think was probably the best it ever got, maybe 55-45. But there wasn't just Saliba getting injured. I think Partey's drop off. I think your lack of goals at points. Gabriel Jesus getting injured at various points as well. You had a very thin squad. I think it's just a little bit. But
that wasn't my point. My point was that Saliba gets the credit for when Arsenal were good, but when Arsenal kind of got bad, he actually missed that period.
But I would argue,
so you can't really tag him.
Also, let's remember,
Saliba was the reason we got there in the first place, because he allowed us, right, to have inverted fullbacks on this kind of like bloody jargon that made us such a fluent kind of team and like a fluid team that because we then had the confidence that he had enough pace. So if the ball came over the top, we weren't just going to be three or four passes, and then we would have conceded. And also, to Pat's point, if you were to only pick one, 100% it would be William Saliba, big Willie.
I don't know. I'd love them as a pairing. Romero is a joke of an inclusion on this list. I'd have rather seen Lewis dunk.
Sure.
But he'd still be third.
But Romero is talented, and I do think that
he's a hothead.
We can make the same. But we can make the same point as well that like he came up in an Atalanta side where he was required to like see ball, get ball, and like basically play it almost like a DM where he was just chasing people all over the pitch like a dog. He came into a Spurs side last year that looked like they had literally no idea what sport they were meant to be playing, and there were lots of points where it felt like Romero was trying to turn back the tide by himself. And I don't think it's that surprising in that situation, especially with all the difficulty behind the scenes with the manager, that he maybe lost his head. But
there's a massive season.
But there's clearly a player there, and while I think Martinez and Saliba would look better in that Spurs defence than Romero, I'm not sure they would look particularly great.
Kept Martinez out of the World Cup winning side. Let's not forget that.
Yeah, but that's because he's more a conventional centre back. It's just like there are always going to be managers who prefer guys who do the sorts of things that they like them to do.
Fair enough. Okay.
It's irrelevant. Whose side are you on, Saliba or Martinez?
I'm obviously on both of you two getting points there.
Yeah.
Sure, Licha. Yeah. It seems like it's happened now. I'm afraid points for Dougie and Maccabi.
Honestly, it's one of those things where I actually just do not respect that opinion.
Okay, this is going to be the main part of the show, really. This is overpriced or underpriced. I'm going to read out a transfer rumour and a quoted price within the media. You're going to tell me overpriced or underpriced.
This is where it can get heated.
Yeah. And why. Okay, we're going to start.
I'm looking forward to the Dougie pile on here.
Where should we start? Let's start with Hojlund to Manchester United. Quoted price, £65 million. I think we're going to ease our way into this section. Reveal. All gone over.
Yeah,
simple.
It's a Manchester United tax, isn't it? He's probably worth maybe 40 to 45, but because it's Man United, let's whack another 15 million.
It's very difficult to argue with. He became a regular at Atalanta really in January. He looks really promising, but he's definitely not the finished article. I do really worry for him being signed as your only striker. What fee
do you think? 40, Jason 40. Do you think?
He's a very high potential player. Yeah, 40 to 50.
But if we were talking about 50 for Balogun, Openda's gone for 38, something like that. Like those guys have got a longer track record than his.
Yeah.
He could feasibly, he's got the raw ability to, go to United for £65 million, and in 3 years or even in 2 years we could be saying, oh, that was a bargain. But it's just the evidence that we've seen so far. There's just not enough of it, is there?
And he'd still be overpriced in the market. You can get a player who ends up being amazing, but the fact remains that at the time they were kind of overpriced for what they were.
Okay. It's also not going to help him. I know wages come into it, but that is a bigger fee than Haaland as well, which is just really not going to help him. Okay,
no points there then, because we all agreed. The next one, we're going to go Harry Kane to Bayern Munich, and the quoted price I'm suggesting here, £90 million.
Oh, this is harder.
100 million
This is
euros.
harder. This is harder.
Is there an option for just priced?
No. 3, 2, 1.
Oh,
All in agreement again.
He's only got 1 year left on his deal.
It's never
Yeah,
going to be
it's
under
that, isn't it? It's
at
that.
90 mil and 30 years old.
Yeah.
Like,
I think
you can't argue
Yeah.
under. If you'd allowed priced, then probably 2 or 3 people would have said that.
I think if Bayern signing Kane made them one of the 2 teams to like 2 favourites for the Champions League,
Yeah.
then I would say maybe underpriced, because you've got a Lewandowski replacement who actually, despite his age, has been very consistent for a few years. Like, his injury record is very good, and he will that Bayern attack will be amazing. But like, even if they didn't sign him, they'd probably still be favourites for the Bundesliga. And yeah, I don't think it puts them in the Man City, Real Madrid category of like Champions League favourites. If the Champions, he would have to win the Champions League with them for that to be truly like an underpriced thing. But yeah, unfortunately, he just doesn't quite take them to that level.
Yeah, they'd not even be comfortable favourites. Like if Bayern came up against like Arsenal in the Champions League next season, you wouldn't be like, well, this is an easy walkover, which is kind of what it should be for that amount of money. You know, I agree with
But
McCubb.
you've just done £100 million on a player.
What's the point? Like, I agree with McCubbs. I'm
Also
just saying
right?
that like if they're buying this, then you'd say maybe you're allowed one team in Europe who you'd say that team is like clearly better than them. But there are at least 2, and then there are a bunch of others who are probably around their level.
But the money we pay for Declan Rice, that is a position that we desperately needed to fix and improve.
But Bayern striker isn't.
And it's also overpriced. We
yeah,
also
exactly.
think that's
It's
overpriced. We also overpaid for Declan Rice. Like,
He's not convinced
what's
that.
the point?
No, tell what his face is.
No,
showing.
but I
No, but
feel-
what's the
I feel
point?
it's 90
Like,
million.
I don't get the difference.
on
I think
Declan Rice.
it's a different equation as well. If it was 90 million to Man United for Harry Kane, because that's the exact kind of striker that you need, and they would elevate you a couple of levels up. That seems to be almost like the missing piece of the puzzle for Man United. They need a proper striker.
Okay, it's all too agreeable at the moment, so
But
I'm going to
also Declan
introduce
Rice
the middle
24.
category as well. I'm going to introduce priced, fairly priced, correctly
Ooh,
priced. 'Cause
okay.
it's all too agreeable at the moment.
All right.
The next one we're going to go for, we're going to jump to Manchester City. We're going to do Josko Gvardiol, and we're going to do 85 million.
boy.
Okay, 3, 2, 1, reveal. Okay, we've got 2 fairly priced. We've got an over and we've got an under.
Yeah. I didn't want to go for fairly priced because I think it is a cop out. Personally, I think it is a cop out.
What's that, Mike?
Yeah, I think. Yeah, just now. Flip-flopping.
No, you should dock anyone a point now who's gone for price. They're cowards.
Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be great. Please do that. Yeah, I'll go with underpriced. I just think given. I mean, I think it's unfair to compare to Harry Maguire because he was obviously incredibly overpriced and most expensive defender of all time. But I think Gvardiol, like, he has shown that at RB Leipzig that he is maybe the number 1 centre-back prospect in world football. Like, he's already, showed that he can like attack in a way that many centre-backs can't. His passing game is brilliant. Defensively, he is fantastic. He's really versatile. He can play at left-back or centre-back. Maybe taking away a bit from the point that I was making about Harry Kane at Bayern, like, Man City don't necessarily need him, but in the long term, I think that transfer fee will pay off handsomely. Like, they could get 15 years out of this guy, and he could be the best centre back in the world for like a lot of that time, or at least one of the best centre backs in the world. We talked about like Enzo Fernandez on the last episode in terms of like Chelsea paying that 110 million for him, and if he's there for 10 years, he's already shown a level that is above a lot of players in that squad. Like, Gvardiol won't necessarily dominate in that City lineup because they're already operating at a ridiculous level, but I think he could quite quickly get up to the kind of level that we see in that City side. And I think for 85 million for a club that don't actually often spend that kind, like, I think it's perfectly reasonable, even just so that another top club in Europe don't get him as well. Like, they've just secured him for years.
I think the McCubbs' point about his age is absolutely spot on, because if you look back when Man United paid the world record fee for Rio Ferdinand from Leeds, at the time it was like, this is crazy money, but because of his age, they got 11 years worth of service out of him. It actually turns into a very good piece of business. When at the time it was like, whoa, you're paying that much money on a defender. So that's the reason why I put fairly rather than under, is because he's still a little bit unproven. I would say so. It's still an awful lot of extra money, and if God forbid he does get a big injury and his career does get cut short, then it turns into an awful lot of money for essentially a lot of potential.
Yeah, I think it's just priced because it is a lot of money, and I think it's a lot of money because they've already sold Nkunku and Szoboszlai, so they really don't need to sell him for less than the fee they've asked for.
Yeah.
But it's a world record fee for a centre back. I don't think you could say it's underpriced by any means. Like I think it's closer to over.
So you would have said over if this thing hadn't been brought.
If I had to go down either side, I'd say over. But
yeah,
I'm angling
world
towards
record
over.
fee is under. I agree with that. I mean, like, look, if you're going to spend a world record fee on a centre back, they should be transformative, and I don't think it's possible to transform Man City. You know, like their defence is already so good. It was joint second best in Europe last season. It was Napoli, and then after that, it was Roma and Man City dead level. Like, if he comes in and he's amazing, I still think that his very best level is probably like Laporte's very best level, where Laporte was the best centre back in the world for about a year. He was incredible. I mean, I still look at City and I think City won the treble last season. Does Gvardiol come in and really change their prospects? Okay, he extends their prospects. You know, he will continue to be very good for them, provided he doesn't get injured. But he's not going to turn them from a third place team or a team that can't get past the semis of the Champions League into the Champions League winning side. They already are that. And I still kind of expect Diaz and Stones to be first choices here, really. I mean, like, unless they're going to put him out in this wide position. Plus, I think if I'm spending this world record fee, I do want the number one defensive prospect in the world without a shadow of a doubt. And I don't think he is. I think, Schlotterbeck's up there. I think Saliba's up there. I feel like there are a few people up there who are at least in the same conversation. Plus, it wouldn't be the first time that we've seen somebody be extremely highly rated in the Bundesliga, like Upamecano, for example, and then turn out to be, I wouldn't say a donkey, but like donkey adjacent.
Whoa. Abuse going on here. Yeah, he's had enough flack.
I think Pat should have some points for
Half
Saliba.
horse, half donkey.
There you go.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Bite back, Mikey. I'll give you one last opportunity to bite back.
I think the point you make there, Pat, about the extension is a really important one. Like, you have to, it's all well and good, like us looking at City treble winners and whatnot. Like, Pep will leave in the next 3 years, surely. Like, this is a signing for his successor. Yeah, absolutely. This is a signing for his successor, and like the immediate post Pep aftermath could be a bit ugly at City. Like in 3 years' time, De Bruyne is going to be gone. Like, there are going to be a number of key players who will be aging out a bit. I know Hojlund, will help. Essentially, Gvardiol could be as important as Hojlund becomes in terms of bridging that gap between this City era and whatever the next one is.
I don't think a centre-back will ever be as important in bridging that gap as the best striker in the world. Plus, I understand what you're saying. Like, you're saying it's a good investment based on a kind of an optimistic reading of the future, which is he turns out to be as good as he looks and he doesn't get injured. But equally, I could say, well, what about the pessimistic reading of the future, where maybe he is only kind of good enough to be your third choice centre-back because your first choice centre-backs are fantastic and it doesn't really end up transforming the future of the club. I mean, like, it's all conjecture, and I do kind of understand that, but my point is, based on what he's done, based on what we've seen from him right now, is this fee too much or too little? And I think it's slightly too much.
So are you an optimist or a pessimist, Joe? That's what it comes down to.
Or are you fairly priced?
Nah. Discount these two. Absolute cop out.
Yeah, I agree.
I agree. The first ever time they got the option, and they were like, you know what? Yeah, we're just going to take
actually,
it.
that's really true.
We should get points for
I'm going
balls.
to dock a point from Dougie and
Yes.
You introduced.
Yeah,
This is going to be my heated moment of the episode.
No, that's excellent.
It was a test.
Wait,
He fell for the test.
Is it in there in the next round?
It's like a Mission Impossible thing. It's like
it's in there for the next round, but you can't use it.
No, he smoked you out by giving you false information.
You can use it.
BS.
I want those two docked a point.
I've only got 1 point and he's on -1.
Okay, next name is Romeo Lavia to Liverpool, 50 million British pounds.
Easy peasy.
Remember, the fairly priced option is on the cards.
Your tricks, mate.
Okay, 3, 2, 1, reveal. Oh my god, there's just so much agreement in here.
They've just gone down. They've just gone down. It's a mental fee for someone that's in the Championship right now with 1 year of senior experience in a top 5 league. Like, he's a good player, don't get me wrong. Does he improve Liverpool's starting 11 if Fabinho stays? Probably not.
But I think if Fabinho had left, then I'd be more tempted.
He might still leave by the time this
But
goes live.
50 mil is like a can't miss fee. Like, you pay 50 mil for a guy who is guaranteed to give you something.
Yeah.
And like, even Southampton fans who really like the player, and I really like the player, were saying last season he's pretty inconsistent at times, which is what you expect from a 19-year-old. But an inconsistent 19-year-old can become amazing, and they can become an inconsistent 25-year-old, you know?
Yeah, I think that Enzo has completely messed up the defensive midfielder market. It's almost like when
Nothing to do
Neymar
with
did
Rice,
it. It's almost like before and after. Like, I don't understand defensive midfielders are demanding such mental fees now.
Rice was a bit of a special case.
Rice was also
like,
afterwards.
he's homegrown as well,
Kinda
and
shot
all that
myself in
kind
the
of
foot
stuff.
there.
Like,
Don't deduct me a point there.
I think with Lavia as well, yeah, they could have got him for a decent. They could have taken a gamble on him from City, maybe for
Yeah, Doogie,
you know,
by
for
your
a lot
argument,
less.
they could have taken him from City, couldn't they? For
Yeah,
far less.
They
wouldn't
definitely could have.
No,
I
they would not have
don't
sold
think he's
him
a bad
to
player.
Liverpool.
I think £35 million is probably a good investment. I think £50 million is a little bit crazy.
Okay, we'll do one more then. We'll do one more. Final one is going to be
We're not doing any
Moises.
points for that.
Oh yeah, but everybody agreed. So
But I went hard on my argument.
Doesn't
right,
matter.
you can have a point.
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
Oh.
he begged for a point. If anything, he should get Dr.
I'll do
Malachi.
anything for a point.
Anything.
Oh.
Final one then is Moises Caicedo, and I'm going to set the fee here at £85 million.
To where though?
Just
To
to
where?
Chelsea. To Chelsea.
To Chelsea.
Okay, reveal.
I've added a side bit though, just slightly.
Why slightly?
Just because Chelsea's so desperate.
Yeah.
Like, I
It's that,
think they
isn't
have
it?
to get someone in. I think Conor Gallagher is their only experienced central midfielder on their books as we film this. And yeah, they definitely need a Caicedo type to unlock Enzo Fernandez and his potential, because I still think he's a little bit overrated, as we found out last time. Let's not go back into that, mainly because I was just kind of arguing for sake of it. But yeah, he's a great player. He'll improve Chelsea a lot. But that fee is quite crazy for a guy that, you know, what's he got? A season and a half?
Basically a season.
A season of Premier League football under his belt. It's still a crazy fee.
That said, if they get like 35, 40 mil for Conor Gallagher, as supposedly West Ham are willing to pay, suddenly I'm fine with this fee. Because that's such a crazy amount of money for a guy who does nothing in the midfield that I think it offsets this fee and makes it kind of reasonable. Like, would you trade Gallagher of 45 million for Caicedo? Of course you would. That's the easiest decision in the world.
It's a good argument.
Yeah, in some like I would almost be tempted to go like fairly priced or whatever.
Get out.
Just because of what. Just because of how desperately they do need a midfielder, and like Caicedo does. Yeah, like Dougie saying, I think he would. You know, on paper, it feels like he would be a great partner for Enzo, and like maybe like looking at my like Gvardiol argument before, it's like someone who comes in who can, you know, elevate the team in the long term. So I would be tempted for that, but equally, I think just I don't know. I just feel like everything, you know, everyone that Chelsea signs is overpriced, and so like it just feels like any, you know, it feels like any fee that Chelsea are going to pay for anyone feels overpriced over the last year.
If he comes in, he's going to add value, and he maybe takes Chelsea to top 8 or something, right? But he's not going to take them to anywhere near the top 4, is he? Like,
He
They might get top
could
8.
do.
yeah.
With him, yeah.
I think they would get top 8 with him. I
I'd
think
be
they're going
surprised. No, that's what he's saying.
Yeah, but it's
Sorry,
not,
I'd be
it's
surprised
not,
if they
it's
finished
not
below
like-
8.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I think they could be kind of good.
I think they'll.
I think
probably
Caicedo Enzo's a really,
I'd have them
really
ranked
good
sixth at the moment.
midfield.
I think they'll finish top 8 anyway, and
Yeah.
I think, you know, I think they could
Generous.
feasibly, if they have a really good rest of transfer window, they could definitely challenge for the top 4. Like, I think it's very easy to look at like last season's performances. Like, they're under a new coach, they've trimmed down the squad a bit. They've got like they're going to have a more well-defined system next year.
Surely some of their signings are going to be better as well. Sterling can't be as bad as last year. Mudryk, like
Enzo.
Nkunku's hopefully
Yeah.
going to make a difference, and they're all obsessed with Nicholas Jackson all of a sudden as well.
All right, some good arguments made there. You all said the same thing. I'm going Patrick Van Straten a point. Okay, scores are in what might be the most agreeable episode of Team Talk you've watched so far. I'm sure when Zach Jalab returns, he will come up with some more disagreeable topics, and we'll get some people that are going to shout at each other on your screens for those.
You don't
And not
need
that
that
you
every
guys
time.
didn't, but
Yeah,
you don't
you
need it
do.
every time, you know. Okay, let's get the scores though. Bottom, Dave, stinking the gaff out on your return, mate. It wasn't negative, but it was 0.
Rusty.
Bit rusty, pal.
Yeah,
but
because you just had to change the rules halfway through.
no. We don't would have made too much difference.
You're on one
mate.
in my eyes.
It wouldn't have made too much
smoked
difference.
you out with it.
Not too much difference.
Coming in joint second, Dougie and McCubbin both on 2 points there, and Patrick Van Straten crowned the champion of this Team Talk episode. 3 points. Well done, Pato.
Both the dad and the daddy.
Yes, well done, mate. Congratulations
Thank
for
you.
that one. If you
Appreciate
enjoyed
it.
this episode of Team Talk, then please do hit subscribe to Football Daily. Hit the like button. We'll see you later.